I'm going to share with you guys 30 mistakes that I constantly see players making in Rise of Kingdoms when they find themselves in KVK. Now, as you guys can see, we just wrapped up Kingsland fighting, and alongside our allies we were able to pull out another victory. But whether you're going into your first KVK or you've been playing the game for 5 or 6 years, hopefully in this video I'm going to share with you guys a couple of mistakes that you didn't know about, so that way you can avoid making them. Tiger said if you like this video, it's going to give you good luck in your next KVK. So if you don't want to lose next KVK, here's a little bonus tip. Drop a like down below. Real quick, as you guys know, I am a sponsored partner creator with Rise of Kingdoms, so if you want more Rise of Kingdoms content, consider subscribing down below. Now this video is going to be broken down in sections, so use the timestamps below, but the first few mistakes that I see have to do with player positioning and safety of their city. And I'm going to be honest guys, I still see veteran players making some of these mistakes, so while these may seem simple or for beginners, you would be surprised. Without further ado, mistake number 1 is being off alliance territory, and this is especially important because in KVK not only can you teleport your city on your own alliance territory, but you can also teleport your city onto coalition territory. So here you can see I'm currently in the TL Alliance, and this flag is owned by SP50, and if I click teleport right here, you'll see that I actually can teleport onto SP50 territory because we are allies, we're in the same coalition. And you'll be able to tell immediately if you're teleporting onto alliance territory versus coalition territory, because coalition territory circles your city in yellow, okay, which means yes, you can teleport here, but just be cautious, right? Whereas if I want to teleport onto TL territory, this is my alliance, it's in green, right? Which means yes, I can teleport there and your city is safe. And the reason this is such a big deal is because if you teleport onto coalition territory, your city can still be rallied, you can still be swarmed, and you can still be imprisoned, okay? So you are not safe on coalition territory just because you can teleport there, whereas on alliance territory your city is safe. You cannot be attacked unless the territory under your feet gets burned, okay? And trust me, your city can be hit in a blink of an eye. You might be 70 million power or 80 million power, and a whale teleports next to you who's 190 million power, and they just 7 March start swarming you because they don't care if they're trading bad, they just want to zero you, okay? And it can happen really quick. So always try to teleport onto alliance territory, and of course you can always just join the alliance whose territory you want to teleport onto, so keep that in mind. Mistake number 2 is logging off in sketchy territory with only an 8-hour peace shield. Now when I say sketchy territory, I mean territory that could possibly be burned within the next couple of hours. So for example here, obviously Kingsland fighting is already over at the time of me recording this video, but just to use this as an example, if I were to teleport onto this territory right here, okay, this is LN93, these are our allies. If I teleported here and the enemy here, SP47, if they continued actually to push through this territory, assuming that they actually reclaimed the pass here, if they pushed through this territory and burned this flag, then everything connected to it would go offline, right? It would be dead inactive territory, in which case if my city was on this territory, I would then be able to get rallied, swarmed, or whatever. Now if you have a peace shield, you will still be safe, just like this player right here, Abusive May. But a big mistake people make is that they use an 8-hour peace shield when they go offline, right? And so you might think, okay, well 8 hours is enough because I only sleep for about 8 hours, so the peace shield's going to go down and then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to log back in, right? And you think that's what's going to happen, but in actuality what's going to happen is you're going to pop an 8-hour peace shield, then you're going to go brush your teeth, change into pajamas, you're going to pass out, and that's been about 30 minutes. Maybe you doom scroll on your phone a little bit, next thing you know it's an hour. Okay, now you've got 7 hours left on your peace shield. All right, then you go to sleep, then you wake up after 7 hours, you go to the bathroom, you check your phone, oh, you were just zeroed 15 minutes ago, right? That's how quick it can happen, because trust me, people are watching your peace shield. They are watching to check and see if the peace shield falls, that way they can swarm you, rally you, whatever. So if you are going to go offline, the safest thing to do is literally to teleport your city back to your safe zone. Okay, that is the #1 safest thing you could do if you want to hold your spot in Kingsland or near pass 7 or even after pass 5. Then go ahead and use a 24-hour peace shield. And I know that that sounds like overkill if you're planning on coming back in 8 hours, right? But you can get 24-hour peace shields from the mysterious merchant occasionally for like 600 gems or something like that. And to me, honestly, spending 600 gems to potentially save all of the troops and resources in your city, that is a no-brainer trade-off to me. If you don't have any 24-hour P shields, you can buy a 12-hour P shield in the shop here right in your city. Just click on the shopping cart, go to boost, go down. I would say 12-hour P shields are the minimum that I would use. I honestly use 8-hour P shields if I'm gonna leave for like an hour or two. Like that's the only time I'll use an 8-hour. Any other time I'm going offline, it's pretty much always a 24-hour, and if I run out of this, maybe I'll use a 12. Mistake number 3 is teleporting onto the front lines of a battle zone without asking alliance leadership. Now this is especially important and is a massive mistake that I still see players make who've been in the game for a very long time, because frontline spots in the battlefield are reserved for rally garrison leaders, open field whales, or leadership flag builders. Like there's an entire pecking order of who should be teleporting to the front lines, and it's very important. It seems like it might be like a little bit of like a, oh, it's not fair that they get the frontline spots or whatever, but it actually matters when it comes to the outcome of war, because let's just use Kingsland for an example here. Okay, the closest spots to pass 8 going into Kingsland are super premium real estate. Okay, because before this pass opens, all of this territory is going to be filled with cities, and typically right now the current meta is to kind of just swarm down the pass. But after the swarm, you're going to have people running through the pass going to a particular attack marker, and you're going to be building flags all along the way. And so you want the closest cities to the battlefield to be those big players who are gonna launch rallies and things like that. And then once these flags start building, that frontline spot is now going to be reserved for the rally garrison leaders, the open field whales, leadership, etc., because the distance between their city and the enemy matters a lot, right? A rally leader needs to be as close to the hitting flag as possible, so that way the rally time is shorter. And if a player who's, you know, 72 million power teleports to the front line, they're not going to be able to help out the battle as much as a player that's 165 million power, right? So if you see open territory on the front lines of the battle, you should at least just be like, hey, alliance leaders, you know, do you mind if I take this spot? And, you know, even if you don't hear from them in like within maybe a couple of minutes, then maybe it's safe to teleport there, right? Because usually the front lines don't stay vacant for long. So if people don't take it immediately, then it's probably safe even if you don't get a response. But it is a good idea to ask, because you don't want to waste a teleport and delay a rally or whatever. The fourth mistake that I see people making still to this day is random teleporting by yourself into the enemy zones to pick off stragglers, or random teleporting into newly opened zones in hopes of getting a really good spot. Now this is a great strategy for very high-end players, whale accounts whose cities are at low risk of being swarmed down, right? So if your city is 170 million power, it's like, okay, you're probably safe to random teleport wherever you want, because people are going to think twice before hitting your city. But again, if you're 73 million power and you're random teleporting around Kingsland, you can be sure that if there's an enemy whale nearby, they will swarm you down, imprison you, maybe launch a rally if they're playing it safe. So for some people this is a good strategy, but for a lot of people it's not a good idea. And beyond that, right, if you're off somewhere doing some side mission and you're hunting kills or whatever, you're not a part of the main alliance or coalition ball fight, right? And the back and forth that happens in a ball fight determines who's going to build their flags more successfully, right? So the more field presence you have concentrated in a particular area, a particular choke point or whatever, the higher the probability that you're going to win that engagement, right? And so if you have too many players just in random spots around Kingsland, or even like, you know, past 7 opens and you somehow land in the enemy's territory, right, you're off doing your own thing, and it might be helpful to get kills that way, but again, at the same time, like, you would probably be better off being in the main fight, in the main engagement, because kill points don't necessarily win KVKs. Okay, what actually wins KVKs is owning territory. That's the real thing that will get you the victory. And if you're not participating in the fights that actually move the needle when it comes to taking territory, holding your own, burning your enemies, then you're not really helping out as much as you think you are. And mistake number 5 is relevant to a lot of the mistakes we've talked about already for this first portion of the video where we discuss your city position and safety, but it still needs to be said here. Okay, do not take city city rallies or swarms without having max tech, or at least near max tech. 9 times out of 10, this is just not the right use of your troops. You're gonna take losses most likely. The DPS these days, the damage per second from the meta marches that are on these whale players, is just through the roof, and you will take damage a lot faster than you think. You're gonna fill up your hospital pretty much immediately, and you're probably not gonna get as many kills in return as you think you will, unless you really know what you're doing. Okay, like let's just look at the end of the crystal tech tree. All right, if we look at these here, we have infantry, archer, cavalry, and siege expert, and these give you upwards of 10% damage taken reduction and 10% damage bonus to that troop type. Okay, so infantry expert means you're going to deal more damage to infantry and take less damage from infantry. Now, why does that matter? Well, a whale player is going to have at least 3 of these 4 maxed out, and that's going to really hurt your city. Okay, and if you're not a max tech player, maybe you don't even have all of the health for your different troop types, maybe you don't have all the defense for your different troop types, and you're going to get absolutely cooked. Okay, I don't think people realize just how devastating it can be to have your city actually get hit by big players, and it's kind of a selfish way to gain kill points, right? You're not participating in a field battle, you're not really doing much of anything, and even if you trade 1-to-1, the enemy still has 100 million more power than you, so did you really even hurt them at all? Probably not. Now, these next tips are very relevant to all players who are joining rally and garrisons, which should be a majority of people, but we're also going to touch on a couple of just rally garrison mistakes in general. Okay, so mistake number 6 is launching rallies without anchoring those rallies. Now, sometimes you don't need an anchor, right? Like if you just want a rally to launch as soon as it's ready, then of course you don't need an anchor. But if you're fighting in a highly contested zone where the enemy's flag is burning, you probably want to add an anchor to the rally. Now, you might be asking, Omniarch, what is an anchor to a rally? Well, advanced players know what this is, but if you're a new player, then basically what an anchor is, let's just say that I'm going to launch a rally and this is an enemy flag. Okay, let's say this is the front lines, I'm right here, I'm about to rally this flag. Okay, but the enemy flag is burning and we're waiting for them to repair it before you launch the rally, right? Because if it's still burning and there's no troops inside, you launch the rally, you tap it, it doesn't do anything, and everybody goes home, and then you got to restart the whole rally, right? So what you're doing is you're waiting for the enemy to rebuild or repair their flag, and you want to launch your rally basically as soon as you can. So what you can do is you can have another player who's really far away, like ideally all the way back in the corner of your starting zone, right? And what they can do is they can join your rally with a single siege unit, right? Whether it's tier 1, tier 5, whatever, it doesn't matter. The reason that you pick siege is because they are the slowest troop type in the game. They have the slowest march speed, and so it might take them 40 minutes to walk to your city to join the rally, right? And so if you are preparing a rally, it's not going to launch until everybody's there. So the rally's just going to sit in your city for 40 minutes while you wait for that single siege to walk from a zone super far away, right? Now, what are you doing in the meantime? So the rally is kind of in the chamber, it's locked and loaded, it's ready to go. Okay, and then what you want to do is, first of all, wait for the enemy to repair the flag, obviously, and then you also want to gain field control. So you want all the armies to go on top of the enemy flag. There's probably going to be some fights, they're going to contest you, you're going to have some back and forth, and only once you actually are able to control the territory around the flag, then once that happens, you can remove the anchor from your rally, right? So that player that's walking from 40 minutes away, the rally leader can actually just come in here and they can just kick them from the rally, right? And once you kick them, the rally is launched and it starts walking, right? And because they only added 1 troop, it's still a full rally, right? I mean, like, what, missing 1 troop capacity is literally nothing. It's a rounding error. It doesn't make a difference. That's a mistake that I often see other kingdoms make, right? Usually it's younger kingdoms or kingdoms that aren't really super in tune with what's going on necessarily, but we will see kingdoms just launch rallies and the flag is still burning. It's like, how was that not anchored? Why was nobody paying attention? Because now you got to start the whole thing over. Mistake number 7 is seeing an enemy city that you want to rally. Let's say they didn't watch my video, they are off territory, and you're going to rally them, right? Or you're going to swarm them down or whatever, right? Don't scout that city 100 times. And I know that it seems counterintuitive, because if you're about to attack a player's city, you want to check their garrison, you want to see how many troops do they actually have, you want to see how many resources they have, right? But the reason that you don't want to have a bunch of people spamming the scout button on that city is because that player who might be at work or something like that, all of a sudden they're going to look down and they're going to see their phone is lighting up with notifications saying, hey, you're being scouted, you're being scouted. And then they're going to log in and they're going to teleport away, or they're going to use a P shield or something like that. And now GG, you just basically blew your cover. You're not going to be able to hit them at all. So yes, it's risky to attack a city that, you know, maybe has a super strong Charles Martel garrison that's, you know, super counterattack, whatever. It's better to hit them than not hit them at all if what you want to do is zero them. So maybe if just like your alliance leader or the rally leader, just in one scout, just to see, okay, how many resources is it, right? But even that I feel like is risky. Like if you don't care about resources, you just want to burn their city to the ground, I wouldn't even do it, right? Sure, you might take bad trades, but that's one fewer player that you have to worry about for the rest of KVK if you actually zero them. Mistake number 8 that I still see people making to this day, bro, to this day, is reinforcing flags, forts, passes from too far away. And I don't understand how this is possible. I don't understand how people continue to make this mistake in 2026. But if this flag is being rallied and I go to reinforce it from 1 minute and 19 seconds away, if we take a look here, my troop capacity is already accounted for in this flag, even though I am not there. Do you understand me? I am on the field over here, but I am taking up 335,000 troop capacity of this flag. 1/6 of the entire flag's capacity is not accounted for. Okay, so what does that mean? The people that are closer to the flag, who are trying to get into the flag, they can't because it's full, even though it's not full, because my troops that are out here on the battlefield, these don't count towards the garrison. Okay, they only count once you get in the flag. Obviously it's common sense, right? If someone's rallying the flag and your troops are out on the field, they're not doing anything. Even though they're walking to the flag, they're not actually participating in the battle yet. So you are nerfing your flag's capacity by joining from too far away. So what you want to do is jump into cities or nearby resource points or something like that and reinforce the flag from as close as you possibly can. And not only does that minimize the amount of time that you're artificially reducing the reinforcement capacity, but it also reduces the amount of time that you are out on the battlefield and you might actually get attacked, right? I mean, if you're walking to the flag and you get swarmed down, like, you're not going to make it. You want to be less than 10 seconds away of march time to join that flag, ideally like 5 seconds. Like, you want to be right there, bro. You want to be right there. Joining from 30 seconds away is just unacceptable. Mistake number 9 that I still see people making is leaving their low health armies in a flag. Now, there are some benefits to doing this, right? Like, this is a little bit nuanced, because if we look at a commander like Yi Sun-sin, for example, who's definitely not as relevant as he once was, but he does have a skill that says if their troop has less than 50% units remaining, it deals 20% more damage. So in the event where you've got, you know, a bunch of low health marches in a flag, then this damage bonus will be active at all times, no matter what, right? But outside of exceptions, a lot of times it is a mistake to leave low health armies in a structure, especially in things like passes. This is very relevant for passes because passes have a big reinforcement capacity, and pass battles tend to go on for a very long time because it's a lot harder to swarm a pass, right? People don't really do that because there's just not enough territory to get around, right? Whereas a flag or a fort, you can surround it and really start to swarm it down. With a pass, you know, the enemy is right there on the other side attacking you, you know what I mean? So it's, you can't control the enemy side of the pass, and so it's just really hard to swarm down passes. Okay, but anyway, the reason that you want to remove low health armies is because structures only have 100 spots available for reinforcement. Okay, a lot of people don't know that because it doesn't actually say it here. Really, it should be in the info section on these structures. I don't know why it's not. Developers, if you're watching, I think this is an area of opportunity here. Okay, you should clarify this, but you can only have 100 armies inside a structure. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, if you have 100 armies with one troop and they all reinforce this pass, then you will have 100 out of 3 million capacity. So it's effectively effectively empty, but nobody else can join it, okay, which is a big problem. Now this is especially a problem if you're actively getting rallied or swarmed, because the health will be dropping really quickly, and so a lot of the armies in the past will get to really low health and people will think, oh well, you know, they're not dead yet, so I'll just leave them in there. But the problem is you'll have a bunch of red marches in the flag or in the pass or whatever, and nobody else can join. Healthy marches can't join, right? And so what a lot of times has to happen is leaders or whatever have to go in and actually just force people to retreat out of the pass so that way healthy marches can join. And so a rule of thumb, for example, is you should remove your armies when they drop below 1% of the capacity of that structure. And the reason that we pick 1% is because you can have 100 armies in the structure, right? So if you have 100 armies at 1% of the capacity, well then you've got a full capacity structure, right? So for example, with passes, you would want to retreat under 30,000 troops, right? Now this depends, like, do you have a lot of people that are trying to reinforce? If not, you know, maybe hang in there for a little bit longer. But if people are actively trying to get into the pass, then yeah, under 1%, that's a good time to retreat your army. So again, under 30,000 troops for a pass, get out of there. You're wasting space, or you are running the risk of wasting space. Whereas like with flags, for example, this is 2 million. So under 20,000, maybe it's time to get out. Now flags are a little different because you might not have field control, right? You might not have other people nearby able to reinforce it. So, you know, just kind of play it safe there. It's very unlikely that flags ever hit their troop cap, right? Because flags, they tend to die faster. But the point is, don't leave super weak or super low health armies in a structure, because it might be making things worse rather than better. Mistake number 10 is reinforcing a flag, fortress, pass, or even a rally with your meta marches. What does this mean? Well, as you guys know, right now, one of the best armies in the game is a Sun Tzu Prime army, whether it's with Liu Che, whether it's with Bai Chi, whatever the case is. This is one of the best, if not the best army in the entire game, right? And if your ally launches an infantry rally, you don't want to join that rally with your meta marches. And this is even more true with garrisons. With rallies, they could be canceled midway, and then you don't want a weak army running through enemy territory. So like, it's, you know, it's a hit or miss there. But if you're really committed to that rally, you're wasting your meta march in that rally, right? Because think about this, when you rally a flag or fort, the only commanders and equipment and armaments that matter are the captain, right? The captain is the one that has all of the troop bonuses, all the stats and everything. Everybody else is just troops in the army, right? So whether I reinforce this flag with my Sun Tzu Prime Liu Che, or I reinforce it with my Sarka with nothing as secondary, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that the troops are in the flag if I'm not the captain, right? And so the reason that this is a mistake is because you're basically locking your meta march in a structure or a rally, right? Where you could have them on the field. They might as well be on the field. You should be supporting the battle and fighting with your best marches, and then you should have some other marches or like presets here that are mainly used for reinforcing flags. Okay, I don't actually know if I have any right now, but you could pick something like this, right? Like my Nevsky Caesar ideally would be a pretty good march to reinforce with, right? Because Caesar actually has extra troop capacity. We have march speed on both the Nevsky and on Caesar's museum relic. Okay, so the real things that you want to optimize for when you're building presets for reinforcing flags and passes and forts is march speed on those commanders and using the staggered formation. Okay, the staggered formation gives you 15% march speed when marching to join a rallied army or garrison. So again, this goes back to what I said before. You want to reinforce from as close as possible, and then having 15% extra march speed will just get you there quicker. Okay, so use the staggered formation, pick commanders that have lots of march speed and lots of troop capacity, and don't waste your meta marches. Now, the only little caveat I'll say there is, you know, sometimes you want to reinforce with a smaller troop size. So maybe you want to reinforce with 200,000 units rather than 300 or 400,000 units, because you're just not going to be able to squeeze in there, right? So troop capacity is not as relevant as you might think it is, but certainly march speed matters a lot, and you don't want to waste your best commander. Mistake number 11, and this is a very simple mistake. Okay, I don't really have to explain this too much. Don't swarm flags, forts, or cities if you are under 100 million power. You will just take bad trades trades, swarming is for whales. We want to see people swarming who have the surprise strike crystal tech. Okay, this increases the damage that you deal by your field troops to enemy rallied armies or garrisons by upwards of 10%. That is a big deal. Okay, so if you don't have max tech and you don't have a lot of power, well then you're just going to be taking bad trades and lots of deads for no reason. There is a cap with the number of armies that can be hitting a flag, fortress, player city, rally, or whatever. If you have ever tried to attack a flag and your army's just walking around it in circles, that's not a bug. It's because the maximum number of armies is already hitting that flag, right? Which is especially bad if you're swarming a flag before the rally even gets there, and then the rally is just walking around the flag trying to get in and it can't, right? So save the swarming for the giga whales, or you know, if you're going to be migrating or whatever and you're trying to drop power, then okay, fine, do that. But for most players, don't swarm things down, save that for the whales. Now mistake number 12 is directly related to that, and that is not retreating your armies when swarming when you hit yellow. Okay, so if you've decided, okay, I'm going to swarm, I'm a whale player, I have troops to lose, whatever the case might be, you decided you start to swarm. Okay, when your troop health gets to yellow, you should retreat, because a majority of your deads and your woundeds come from under 50% health. Okay, it is actually an exponential curve, so the number of woundeds and deads that you take is small at the beginning, and then it spikes at the end, or as you get closer to red of your troop health. Okay, so the reason that you retreat at yellow is for two reasons. One, you don't want to take a bunch of deads unnecessarily, and two, it gives somebody else the chance to start swarming that who might be circling around it with max health, right? Why would you want to be dealing damage with a half health army when your ally can be dealing damage with their full health army, right? So it's a win-win. You save yourself from getting a ton of deads, your ally can go in there and hit them even harder with their army that's full health. So always retreat when you're yellow, unless there's just nobody else nearby to help you out. Mistake number 13 also has to do with swarming down a rally, flag, fortress, whatever, and that is swarming at the wrong time. So the best time to swarm a flag, for example, is when the garrison captain's health is low. The reason for this is because if suddenly the garrison is getting hit by a ton more damage when it starts getting swarmed, you might be able to pop that garrison, and then all of a sudden the second place person is like a freaking Nevsky Caesar, right? And all of a sudden Nevsky Caesar is the garrison captain, and now you're absolutely shredding down that flag. Also, if you start swarming the flag before, and I said this earlier, but if you started swarming the flag before the rally even gets there, then now the rally is just swarming, it's walking around the flag, it's not even connecting, and you're just taking pointless deads. It doesn't make any sense, right? Let the rally hit first, swarm when the garrison captain's health is low, or when the garrison itself is low. That's going to be your best strategy. Okay, and this is especially true if it is an anti-swarm garrison or rally. If you see an Attila anywhere, okay, whether it's rally, garrison, whatever, if you see an Attila, probably don't even swarm it at all. But if you are going to swarm it, make sure there's lots of people to do so and it's already low health, because otherwise you are going to get shredded. Mistake number 14 is just standing around while you're rallying a flag. Okay, now this sounds like it's counterintuitive, right? You would think like, oh well, you know, if we're rallying this flag, I would want my marches to be nearby in case I need to do some sort of, you know, open field fighting or something like that, right? And that's definitely true, but the mistake is standing there. You don't want to just stand next to a flag that you're rallying. First of all, the rally captain, if they're in your alliance, you can be taking AoE from that flag. Okay, so if the flag has somebody like, I don't know, Hera or something like that, right, and it's got circular AoE, well, you're going to take AoE damage from that, and that's going to hurt really bad. So first of all, if you're standing too close, you're going to take damage unnecessarily. It's pointless, it's stupid, don't do that. But on top of that, there's something more helpful that you could be doing instead of just standing there, and that is either A, stacking your armies on top of that flag, right? So right now my armies are completely on top of this flag, right? So if people want to click on the flag to reinforce it, they could have a really hard time doing so. Now the devs have tried to patch this and make this a little bit easier over the years, and that's definitely true, but it's still a good strategy to stand directly on top of the flag so people can't just like click and drag into the flag. They'll instead attack your standing army by accident, and that will prevent them from, you know, reinforcing the flag, which is good. The other thing that you can do, which is even more effective, is actually just use the attack march feature right around the flag. So what you can see I'm doing here on the top right, you'll see that my armies armies have a sort of purple walking logo right next to their emblem here, and what that means is that you are attack marching. Okay, what is attack marching? Attack marching is your armies will automatically fight anything in their path within a certain radius. Okay, so it's literally auto battle. Like, you are literally targeting a spot on the map and saying walk there, but if you see an enemy, hit it. Right, that's it. There's no thinking about it. Okay, and the reason that this works is because if you're just attack marching back and forth on a flag and the enemies are trying to get inside that flag, you're going to be attacking them as soon as they hop out of the city to join, right? And that's really helpful. You're going to be hurting the reinforcements before they even get in the flag. That's the best way to do this. Now, the way that you can use attack march, there's a couple of ways. One, you can literally click on the map and hit attack march, and then you can hit yes, and then choose the armies that you want to do, and then you can send attack march that way. The other way that you can do it is you can turn on quick command. Okay, so let me move my head here. You can turn on quick command. This is how I have it, right? I uncheck pretty much everything here with quick command. Okay, and if you're on PC, quick command, when you have it on, you select your armies, and then if I'm left clicking, right, normally you would right click, but if you left click, that's what's going to move your armies around, and you can left click your enemies to attack them. Okay, again, this hold to attack march thing, this is the only thing I have selected. So what that means is when quick command is turned on and I press and hold, now my armies are going to attack march. You can see right here, they're going to attack march to that specific location. Okay, so that's how you can use attack march. And you can even, if you go into your settings, you can further customize this. In the combat settings, you can scroll down, it says attack march, and you can choose the radius for how close or far away you want your armies to attack. Right now, for me, I have it set to 0. Right, I only want to hit stuff right next to me. That's it. Okay, I honestly don't even know what the purpose is of having it higher than 0. It seems counterintuitive to me. That's just my opinion. Okay, and then you could also set an auto retreat here. Okay, so if your army's troop drops to a certain health, then they'll literally just walk back to your city. This might be good, this might be bad, but I honestly don't use attack march that much besides just for this one specific thing. So that's the mistake. I see people just standing around doing nothing. It makes no sense. You should be attack marching, or at least standing on the flag, so that way people can't reinforce it. All right, let's move on to the open field combat portion of this video. And mistake number 15 is, and I can't believe I even have to say this in 2026, not using army expansions. Now, in recent updates, the developers actually have set up a way to where when a specific buff falls off of your army, it will send you a mail. Okay, it will say your advanced army expansion has ended. You can reactivate the buff by using any required items. You go here and it brings you right to the expansion thing. Okay, now here's the thing, right? You might think, okay, well, this is 50% for 4 hours. You're like, man, I don't have 4 hours to fight. Like, I don't know if I should use this or not. The answer is almost always yes. Okay, if you're gonna fight for more than like an hour, I would say this is definitely worth using. At the very least, use a 25%, right? I mean, just at the very least. But this is like kind of non-negotiable in my opinion. Unless your enemies are just absolute trash, you almost always should have a 50% army capacity at all times. The amount of damage that you deal is based on how many troops are in your army, right? So this is literally just an all damage bonus. That's really all this is. If you don't have this and your enemy does, they will be shredding you down. Okay, so like even if you can't fight for 4 hours, you almost always want to use this if you're entering a serious engagement. Now, moving on to mistake number 16 is very related to this, and that is not using a 10% attack or defense item from the shop. Okay, so if you come into the VIP shop, you will see that you can get your hands on a 24-hour enhanced defense or a 24-hour enhanced attack. Now, these are different than the ones that I have in my inventory here. You can see this is 24 hours, but this is only 5% attack, whereas when you come into the VIP shop, the purple version is actually 10% attack. It's literally twice as good. It's double the amount of attack that you get here for 600 gems. Okay, now this is for 24 hours. You always want to use either the attack or the defense. There is no health one, unfortunately, and which of these two you pick really depends. The defense one is more expensive, and if I'm being honest with you guys, I think it has fallen off in its relevance as much. I still use the defense one sometimes, right? If you're in engagements where you want to be a little more tanky, obviously you use this. If you're an infantry player, you probably already have a lot of defense, and so you would want to go for attack. Same thing if you're like a siege main, you're probably going to want to go for attack. And this is different than what it once was, right? Back in the day when we had crystal tech that gave you 42% attack, there was diminishing returns to additional attack points, right? But now now we only get 12.5% attack and we get 15% defense. So we literally get more defense than we do attack from the crystal tech these days, and because of that, some armies would just prefer the attack, right? So it's a little bit different than it used to be. So it really just depends. Again, the attack buff is literally cheaper anyway at 600 gems as opposed to 750. So again, it'll depend on the situation. If you're getting outnumbered, then maybe you would want the defense one, but either way, pick one of them, right? Use one of them. And beyond that, in the same vein as that, is runes. Always fight with a rune. There is no excuse to not use a rune these days, because you can pick up runes from your whale players who have the rune technology. Okay, if it's earlier in the KVK and nobody has this yet, then that's fine. It's called a rune craft. Okay, it'll literally just let you drop a specific rune of your choosing. It shows you right here all the different choices here. But again, even after pass 5, you know, if nobody has this, walk to get a rune. Okay, it matters, especially because one, a lot of whale players are lazy and they won't do this, and so they just won't have a rune when they're fighting. And so that's a nice way for free-to-play players and low spenders who aren't lazy to bridge that stat gap a little bit, which is nice. Obviously later in the KVK, when a lot of players have runecraft, then everyone probably will fight with a rune, but it does make a difference. It definitely moves the needle. And in my opinion, the best runes that you can pick here, obviously in first place, my opinion, is the attack and march speed rune. I know this is a little bit counterintuitive, but in KVK, like, time matters more than anything, and march speed is a big deal. If you can't outrun your enemy, then you're gonna get swarmed down, or you'll never catch them in the open field, right? So march speed is probably the most valuable stat that you can get from runes, because it's the hardest one to get from anywhere else, right? Like I said earlier, you can get an attack item, you can use a defense item. So these two, like, yes, they're good, but they're not as good as getting march speed, in my opinion. Beyond that, the attack and defense rune I think is still very good. This is literally 14% of stats, whereas this is 10% of stats. And again, the troop health is also really good as well. So if you're a garrison leader, for example, troop health is probably the way you want to go. But a lot of times people just pick the attack defense rune. I think this is like, these two are kind of like the no-brainers. Like, you just turn your brain off and just get these. Why? Because it's 14% of stats, whereas these are 10. So like, obviously that's the way to go. Not to say that the health is useless. Obviously the health is still extremely valuable, but these days I just prefer the march speed, right? Like, it's just, you need it. You need the march speed. There's kind of non-negotiable. So always fight with those buffs. It is a mistake not to. Mistake number 17 is one that I actually made up until Kingsland of this KVK, and that is not picking the correct buff from your civilization. Literally, we were going into Kingsland and I realized I still had the Germany buffs on my city, which was embarrassing to say the least. This does not give you pretty much anything when you're fighting, but it is very good during the off season. Okay, so I have Germany during the off season, and then when I'm actually fighting, I will pick typically Realm of the King, which is the buff that you get from the Ottoman Empire. Now, that's not always going to be the best one for you. It used to always be the best one, but now that we have combo damage and smite damage, it's a debate. Okay, but the reason that I picked this was primarily because of the march speed. I wanted the march speed. The archer health was a nice bonus. The skill damage is, again, really, it's only for my Emperor Chin March, but like, I wanted the march speed, right? And so I asked myself, okay, well, do I want 5% health and 5% skill damage for my Emperor Chin March, or do I want to get something like Maya, which gives you 3% normal damage, which applies to both of my infantry marches and both of my cavalry marches? Okay, so that's 3% normal damage for 4 armies. I mean, really, the normal damage applies to all armies, because all armies deal normal damage, but really it moves the needle most for combo and smite damage. So that's 12% normal damage across the 4 armies that care about it the most, versus 10% of bonus in the stat department here, and 5% march speed for everybody, right? So Ottoman Empire was the choice for me. Other players, like infantry players, can pick Rome. They also get march speed for everybody, and you get the infantry defense, so that's always nice as well. But for me, I just went with Ottoman Empire. I also was running a CPO with a couple of different secondaries just as a 6th kind of throwaway march, and that was also using skill damage, so that kind of influenced this decision a little bit as well. But again, the mistake is not picking a war civilization going into war. Okay, now when it comes to your special unit, that's like a whole other video. I'm an infantry main. I picked throwing axemen. The reason for that is because they have the highest base health stat of all the different infantry units, so that's why I picked them. Not saying everybody should, but that was sort of my logic there. But with that being said, let's move on to mistake number 18, which is not setting up your army presets beforehand. Okay, one of the things that a lot lot of players do is they forget to set up their presets beforehand, and then pass is going to open in 5 minutes and they're like, oh, they're scrambling to like pick their army, and then all of a sudden you're not able to get to the ball fight in time, and you're kind of just a straggler getting picked off. Okay, so before you go into your fight, set up your presets. The way that I like to do this is I like to have it slowest army to fastest army, because when you actually let's say you click march and then you hit new troop and you hit multi-select, right, it's going to deploy them in order 1 through 5, right? So you want the slowest one to get the head start, right? And that's kind of how I do it. I think that's the smartest way to set it up. Of course, you could do it however you want, but always remember that in certain KVKs like Heroic Anthem, you have things like support skills are things that you want to set up on your presets in advance as well. Okay, so go through and make sure okay, I'm going to use this on this army, this on that army, right? So for example, I have the extra march speed and attack on my strongest infantry march. I also have the art of archery there, not for the archer attack, but for the extra rage, right? I want my Sun Tzu Prime to have as much rage as possible all the time, pop those active skills, and that worked for me really, really well during this KVK. So set up the presets before you get into the fight. And if you're in a KVK that doesn't have support skills, you can actually go into the expedition and you can come into one of the garrison battles here, and you can actually set your march using up to 750 army capacity, right? So what I mean by that is you don't have to use an army expansion to set up your presets, right? Because if you don't use an army expansion, then you're going to be set to whatever the non-boost is. So this is the best way to do it if you don't have support skills. Of course, if you do have support skills, then you can't set them in the expeditions screen, so it's not as helpful for KVKs like Heroic Anthem. On top of that, right, like when it comes to setting army presets, make sure all your commanders have the right gear, right? Make sure the gear is not on some Sunset Canyon march that's not going to be doing anything. Like put all your best gear on the correct armies and make sure they all have their equipped formation and armaments and everything like that. Mistake number 19 when it comes to open field fighting is not using the quick command feature when you're fighting alongside your allies that are not in your camp. Okay, so for example, in this KVK we were allied with Fire Camp, and in Kingsland we were supporting them up near the top of the zone. And so what you'll see is like all of your blue dots, right, all of your blue armies and your green armies, they're going to be together, and then all of the yellowish orange armies are going to be sort of, I guess the game considers them neutral targets, but really those are your allies, right? Because the enemy is going to be gray and red, okay, depending on if they're fighting or not. So with quick command, what you can do is you can actually unselect all of the stuff here. So again, this says attackable targets, right? I do not want to attack aligned troops. That doesn't make sense. Those are my allies. Why would I attack them? I don't want to hit rallied armies, right? Why would I want to hit a rallied army? I'm not a Giga Whale. I'm not swarming stuff down, okay? Why would I hit an aligned city? Why would I hit an enemy city? You know what I mean? Like these are things that you don't want to accidentally click in the middle of a big fight. Now, you might want to swarm something down like this in the future, but you want to do it deliberately. You don't want to do it as a mistake, right? Same thing with runes and resource points. You don't want to be playing in dot mode and you're right clicking on a rune. Like it just doesn't make sense. You're just moving your armies around for no reason. So use quick command to save you headaches and to save you from misclicking an ally, and then you get a pop-up on your screen that says, are you sure you want to attack them? They're your ally. Then you got to click the X, and by that point you already got swarmed down. Mistake number 20 is in the same vein as that, not using filter mode. Filter mode is fantastic. Okay, so what I like to do with filter mode is if I send out my armies and I'm playing in dot mode, which we'll talk about in a second, it will prevent me from seeing my allied diamonds, right? So these are my allied armies right here. You can see it. This is a moving blue diamond, and I can just turn that off, right? I don't want to see them in the open field because I'm trying to click where they're standing, and if you're clicking on them, they're kind of in the way, right? So you want to make your allied armies as small as possible on the battlefield when you're fighting in dot mode, because you don't want to be clicking on them by accident, right? Not that you can hit them, but you're just not going to be hitting the enemy that's right underneath them, for example. Okay, same thing for aligned troops. I just don't want to see their diamonds on the field. I don't want to click them, right? I don't want to do that. All I want to see is the enemy troops on the battlefield, their names, portraits. These are the only things that I keep unchecked because I want to see the red enemy diamond on the battlefield. That's what I'm going going for the entire time. The map icons, I would be very careful using this. This is, you know, basically your markers on the battlefield. You can hide those. Okay, so if you're fighting, like let's say there's fighting happening right here, this marker would be in the way, right? So I would go ahead and I'd turn it off and we would fight, but you have to remember to turn them back on, because otherwise you're going to be missing instructions from your leadership. Okay, so try to fight around the marker. If you really can't fight around the marker, turn it off and make sure you turn it back on. Moving on to mistake number 21. I know this drives leadership insane. Okay, so please don't do this. If you're in a big open field fight, do not retreat your march if your health is still white. Okay, so what do I mean by that? You see this bar right here? This is your troop health. This is the number of troops remaining in your army. Okay, if you are in a big meaningful fight, do not retreat to your city if they're still with white health. That does not make any sense. You are wasting time. Okay, if you're still in the white, you are still healthy enough to fight, and especially if it is a flag or a fortress or whatever that is like super impactful, you should just fight to the death. And I know that that sucks and you're probably gonna get a bad trade, but you might win KVK because of it. Okay, that is like the God's honest truth. You sometimes have to take bad trades. It's a war game. Sometimes you're gonna take the short end of the stick. It is what it is. Okay, sometimes you got to fight until death. There's no getting around that. Now if you are on the front lines and your city is really close, then you can retreat your armies when they're like low yellow health. Maybe if they just got to red health, then yeah, retreat, right? Get out of there. If you're far from your city, then just fight to the death, right? Like you just, this is especially true in Kingsland. Okay, there's just no point to retreating your army when they're half health. It makes no sense, right? You still have 290,000 troops in that army. Why are you retreating, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Your enemy is on yellow. Just because you lost some health doesn't mean you don't have more than the people you're fighting. So you're still at the advantage, and you're basically losing that advantage by retreating, and then your allies just get screwed over. Mistake number 22 is not fighting in dot mode. Now this is something that has changed a little bit over the last, I would say, year or so. Some people like to fight super zoomed in, like they literally zoom all the way in and then they stack their marches to fire the active skill in one direction, and that strategy works really good if there is a choke point where you are just kind of stalemated at, right? If you are stalemating right on one spot and the ball is not really moving back or forth in either direction that much, then yes, that is a great strategy. But for a lot of the time, you're not going to be doing that. A lot of the time there's going to be some movement back and forth on the battlefield, right? The stacking strategy works really good for like those Imperium kingdoms where like it's Imperium versus Imperium and it's just a meat grinder and nobody's making progress, right? But for the rest of us, for the normal people, okay, you want to be playing in dot mode for a majority of the time. And the reason for this is because there's going to be a lot of movement, and you want to be able to see the movement of the battlefield, the back and forth of that open field fight. You want to see it on a higher level, and it's just easier to click specific targets when they're just a little dot on the screen rather than a bunch of armies stacked together, right? I mean, you can't even see my Bai Chi march right here. Like you can't even see my Bai Chi march, but he's right here. Now imagine there's 500 armies on top of that, right? There's just too much chaos. You can't see anything. You can't effectively tell who is the closest army to you to be clicking, and so you have to be fighting in dot mode. Now on top of that, there's a couple of different zoom levels that I would recommend fighting at. Okay, the best one for big open field fights is the closest zoom that gives you dot mode, right? So this is not dot mode, this is dot mode. This is the best way to do it. The time where this zoom level sucks is when there's a bunch of different cities all on top of each other, right? Because as you can see, these nameplates cover a bunch of the battlefield, which is really annoying. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to zoom out just enough for those nameplates to go away, and now you can fight in dot mode this way, right? And just to be clear, it is still in dot mode. Even though I've zoomed out, you could see that it's still in dot mode. Okay, so you can still fight, you can still play here. If you zoom out too much, then you can't actually like see what's happening, right? You can't see like enemies or allies or anything. You can only see your own armies, and that's not helpful. So the perfect zoom levels are this if there's not cities nearby, or if there is cities nearby, you would go with this. Okay, those are the two best zoom levels for dot mode. If you get used to fighting like that, then you will be golden. Mistake number 23 is going to be a little bit of a controversial one depending on who is listening, but you should probably never turn off screen flicker. Now Now I understand the irony here because mine's turned off, but we're not in active battle. Okay, if you are actually in a open field fight, you should leave screen flicker turned on. And I know that that's super annoying, especially if you've joined a garrison or something and it's always flashing, but you want to know if you're being hit. Okay, and when you're playing in dot mode, it's really hard to tell if you're the one actually getting hit unless you're constantly looking at your avatar plates over here and you're watching your health getting chunked down. Then you're like, oh my god, I'm getting hit, right? But why would you wait until then when you could have known immediately if you had just turned on screen flicker? Okay, so if you're fighting and all of a sudden your screen starts flashing, that's how you know, okay, it's time to retreat, right? You're too far up, you push too far forward, now you're tanking for everybody else. Thank you, by the way, but you're not going to want to do that for long. Okay, so retreat back a little bit, then get back in the fight when the screen flicker goes away, and that's the best way to do it. This is especially helpful when you're getting hit by a ranged march. Okay, you might think, oh, I'm safe over here, and your screen's still flashing. You're like, why is it flashing? That guy on the other side of the river is hitting you with his Cordoba. And it's annoying, but like, you need to know that. So most of the time I would say play with screen flicker, use it to your advantage. It's just information, right? It just tells you the information. Hey, you're getting hit right now. The more information you have, the better when you're fighting in dot mode. Mistake number 24 is being too picky with who you actually hit in the open field. Okay, when you're in a big open field ball, do not be picky with who you hit. Over the years, the best strategy that I've found is to just hit the enemy closest to you. Okay, because if you try to pick and shoot, like, oh, the closest march is a cav march, but I really want to hit the archers because it's an Emperor Chin, and so I'm gonna just go a little bit into the enemy ball to hit the archer. All of a sudden you're in the middle of their ball, now you're dead. Okay, so on paper, yes, there is a pecking order for like which troop type you should probably be hitting first. Spoiler alert, in my opinion, it's archers, then it's infantry. Okay, because those are the two strongest. Like Emperor Chin March and the Sun Tzu Prime March, you want to get them out of the way. They're just gonna destroy you if you leave them healthy. But what takes priority over all of that is the guy standing right next to you, right? Like, why would you go into the enemy murder ball when you've got an enemy right here? Just punch him in the face. He's right here, right? And again, I know that's controversial. I know people like to turn on the troop types so they can see which troop type they're hitting, and if you like to do that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, I still think the best person to hit is the one right in front of you. You want to stay in combat as long as possible. You don't want to lose rage by chasing somebody that's a little bit farther into the ball. Mistake number 25 is not using terrain to your advantage. So one of the cool things, let me actually get out a teleport to show you guys this. If you get out a teleport, you'll see that there's some amount of terrain that is just, first of all, you can't teleport on top of it, and also at a certain point your armies can't walk into it, right? Like, I can't walk into this river or this little pond, whatever this is. Okay, river, it's not a river. Anyway, the way that you want to use territory like this, or you can do this especially true with mountains, right? It works really well with mountains, is if you're gonna fight an enemy, you want to try to fight them up against the terrain. And the reason for this is because if you actually attack something, we'll just use this barbarian as an example. Okay, so let's put all of my armies on top of one another, and then let's hit this barbarian and let's see what happens. What you'll see is your armies actually fan out around that barbarian, and the same thing happens when you're hitting an enemy army. Okay, and that's annoying if the enemy murder ball is right here, because now two of my armies are in the middle of the enemy murder ball and they're getting screwed. Okay, so the reason that I'm bringing this up with territory is because if you're fighting right up against a body of water or right up against a mountain, okay, you'll notice that your armies don't fan out as much because on one side of them is territory that they can't fan out into, so they're more likely to stay stacked on top of one another, and they won't spread as far into the enemy ball without you knowing, or by accident, or whatever the case might be. And the other advantage of that is that now all of your active skills are pointing in the direction of the enemy, right? So let's say the enemy is coming down this way. If I'm fighting them up against this terrain, you'll see that my armies kind of stay nudged up right up against that terrain, and I'm firing the active skills in the right direction. Okay, so that's a huge tip. Always use terrain to your advantage. You'll be out of position less often, and you'll be firing your active skills in the correct direction more frequently. Mistake number 26 is using too many armies in the open field as a free-to-play player or low spender, because in today's meta, sometimes less is more, with a little asterisk there. Always more is more in this case, but my point is, right now the best armies in the open field are going to be your Sun Tzu with either Bai Chi or with Liu Che. Okay, the other best army is going to be your Emperor Qin with either Zhuge or with your YSG. Those are the two best armies in the game right now. Okay, almost not even close. The third best army is going to be your combo damage cabs. So whether it's King Arthur with Achilles or whether it's Genghis Khan with Achilles, that's going to be probably your third best army, assuming you don't have siege in certain scenarios. Sometimes siege outperforms this stuff, but mainly, okay, mainly what I noticed in this KVK, my two best armies were my Sun Tzu and my Emperor Qin, and it almost wasn't even close. Even with my Genghis Khan Achilles, like it just could not output enough damage to compete with the Sun Tzu Prime or with the Emperor Qin. These two armies are so good. Okay, so the mistake here is that if you're running 4 or 5 armies as a free-to-play or low spender, what you're doing is you're running 2 or 3 suboptimal armies that are going to be trading a lot worse than your best armies. Okay, and sometimes all you need is bodies on the field, right? You just need boots on the ground, and in those cases, yeah, you're gonna run 5 armies. But in other engagements, especially later in the KVK, when you're running low on resources and speed ups, you should dwindle down the number of armies you're using to stay in the battle for longer. Okay, because again, you're getting the most return on 2 marches. So all the resources and troops you're wasting on, you know, your Ragnar CPO march, if you're still running that, or I should say CPO Ragnar, or your Hua with Joan, or whatever the case might be, whatever your 5th army is, right? All those resources you're wasting healing those troops, you would have gotten a better trade just saving those resources and just using fewer armies and running the same armies over and over and over again, right? Running your Sun Tzu, running your Emperor Qin over and over and over. That's the best use of your resources, of your speed ups in KVK. So again, sometimes you need to run maximum armies for whatever, a big push or something like that. But if it's not, if it's just you're running low on resources, then use fewer marches. It'll keep you fighting for longer. With that being said, let's talk more about some resource management mistakes that I see people making in KVK. Mistake number 27 is going all in when you're fighting in zone 5. Okay, if you are especially a free-to-play player or a low spender and you are going all out in zone 5, then you are not going to have enough resources or speed ups to fight effectively later in the KVK. Now, a lot of times, depending on the map, zone 5 isn't really going to determine whether or not you get into Kingsland. Okay, and really the winner of KVK is whoever wins Kingsland. Now there's a lot that goes into that, like obviously you get bonuses from things like the circle and stuff like that, and the sanctuaries, like all of these matter and they help you win Kingsland, but the actual winner of KVK is whoever wins Kingsland. Okay, whatever happens before Kingsland, it matters, but it's not the deciding factor, especially because most kingdoms these days, if they're big enough, they're going to be fighting zone 5 mostly with farm accounts. And what I mean by that is you're going to have one garrison captain that's a whale player, and then you're going to stuff that flag full of farms. Okay, and so it's just farm troops, and so swarming down flags in zone 5 is stupid because you're wasting your troops against farm troops which don't even matter. It's really just bait almost, right? So don't burn out too early and don't waste everything for zones that matter but they don't make or break the KVK typically. Tip number 28 when it comes to resource management for KVK is not chaining barbarians or killing a lot of barbarians early on in the KVK. Chaining barbarians in Lost Kingdom is more valuable than ever because they give you crystals. So for the AP that it costs to hit the barbarian, not only are you getting the regular rewards that you would normally get in Home Kingdom, but you're also on top of that getting crystals, right? So chaining in the Lost Kingdom is actually more valuable than chaining anywhere else because you get more for the same thing. And also, don't quote me on this because I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that it costs more AP to attack the Lost Kingdom barbarians than in the Home Kingdom. You guys can let me know if that's true in the comments. I'm pretty sure that's the case. It's 70 to hit this barbarian. Okay, so if it costs more to hit them, you get more value for getting free kills, right? Because you're saving more AP for every chained barbarian. But the reason that you want to do this earlier in the KVK is because you want to have enough crystals going into pass 5, and especially by, you know, altar fights in pass 7, you want to have as much progress on your tech as possible because all of the big spenders are going to blow through the tech. Okay, and you don't want to be behind right out of the gate. So chaining starting on day 1 and killing those barbs as much as possible makes a huge difference compared to trying to catch up at the very end. Oh, we're going into Kingsland tomorrow and I got to get as many crystals as possible. You waited way too long. Like, sure, go ahead, get as many crystals as you can, but you should have done that on day 1 so so you'd have had that advantage for a longer period of time. Mistake number 29 is not doing your daily bastions, and this is again something that is more for new players, beginner players, but I know even some whales, they get a little lazy. Okay, so this is your reminder, always do all 15 bastions. In some KVKs you have a 16th bastion you can get from certain things. I often choose that option, right? So do all your bastions and prioritize the legendary bastions before the epic ones. Typically you get a higher crystal mine work speed boost from the legendaries than you do the epics. So here we have 11.5% for a level 6 legendary, and we have 7.5% from a level 6 epic. Okay, so prioritize the legendary ones, especially if you're in a KVK like Heroic Anthem that has support skills. Almost always you're gonna have legendary skills be better than the epics. That's not always true, right? Like obviously the Queen Tamar skill is quite good. 10% normal damage is lovely, right? Love that a lot. But like Pelagius, the skill sucks, right? Like it's just not good. Okay, so it depends, but for the most part the legendary skills are going to be better anyway. So always do your bastions, do them early, do them often, and prioritize the legendaries. And now that we have up to 20 refresh chances, there's really no excuse to be doing suboptimal quests here. Okay, so I love the ones that have you kill barbarians. They give you, I think, 18,000 crystals depending on your crystal tech, of course. So it's not the most when it comes to crystals, but also you get the benefit of killing barbarians, which also gives you crystals, right? So it's something you should be doing anyway. But on top of that, obviously the Kahar ones are really good. I like the troop training ones. If I'm close to finishing my daily training anyway, I'll grab one of those, and that usually gives you a Kahar bone whistle, which gets you even more crystals as well. Obviously gathering is a great way to get Kahar bone whistles and the crystals if you've got time to do that. But the quests where you donate materials, just don't do them, right? Donating materials, doing alliance tech donations, like those are just really bad bastion quests that you should probably just never do. Also donating resources like a million gold or whatever, like just don't do it. It's just not worth it. Now the final mistake number 30, is more so a platform choice mistake in my opinion, and the mistake is fighting big KVK battles on a tiny phone screen. Now over the last year or two, the developers have made it much better to play on mobile than it used to be in the past, but it will never be better than playing on PC. And the reason for that is because I am looking right now at like a 27-inch display. So I have a huge screen in front of me. I can see even the smallest of details with the highest of clarity, and I'm using a mouse, so my pointer is perfectly precise on a specific point here, whereas when you're playing on a phone, you've got a tiny little display and you're using your fingers, right? And I'm an American, so I got fat fingers, so I'm misclicking stuff and it's annoying. On top of that, PC has hotkeys, right? I don't know if you guys know this, but under the control settings here, you can kind of customize your controls. You can change how your cursor looks. Like there's so many different things that you can do here. There's different shortcuts, hotkeys, things like that. Like it's just so much better, right? Like being able to retreat my armies by just selecting them and hitting the R key is an insane advantage. Again, I also have it set up to where when I press the A key, it just selects all of my troops, right? So I press A, I press R, now all my troops are walking back. Control A will have me select everything on the screen, right? Like it's such an advantage to play on PC. It's not even funny. Again, I know it's better on mobile now than it used to be, but I still think from my experience, you just have way better control over everything on PC compared to mobile. And on top of that, computers can be hardwired into your internet connection. So if lag is an issue for you, you can run an Ethernet cable from your router directly to your computer, and now you don't have to worry about lag from your setup, most likely, depending on your home internet, of course. But like hardwiring it is always going to be the best way to get the best connection. And of course, Rise of Kingdoms has its own dedicated PC client. Okay, back in the day, you had to use some sort of like emulator, right? That's not been the case for years now. There is a dedicated Rise of Kingdoms PC app you download from their website, and it's perfect. It's built for this game. It is in my opinion, a big mistake to be playing on mobile, which is kind of funny because it is a mobile game, but at the end of the day, it just is what it is. But guys, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I really hope you leave a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton, and use the brand new hype feature. It's been around for a couple of months, but it really helps out channels like mine a ton. It pushes this video out into the YouTube algorithm, and I would really appreciate it, especially if you learned something from this video. This video was a lot longer than usual, so it took me a while to make. If you have any questions or other tips or mistakes that you see players making, put that in the comment section below. And while you're down there, consider subscribing to the channel. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and click the bell to be notified the next time I upload upload a Rise of Kingdoms video. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Omniarch. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Peace.